Oh,
Oh, maybe did it.
there it is. There it is. All right. Yep. All right. I see people popping in now. There we go.
Got a stacked room. I like it. Yeah, guys, we're gonna give it a few minutes. Let some more people hop in, but very excited to dive in. I know I always learned a lot from Logan, and I'm sure you guys are excited to learn too. So, yeah, get ready to sit back, take some notes, and we're gonna have some fun tonight.
What time? Yeah, we're dead right at 6. Okay. Yeah, we'll give it a couple minutes. Folks are starting to pop in here. So if anybody's got any, I don't know, maybe we can use the first couple minutes for some Q&A. If anybody's got anything they want to ask random real estate questions about while we're waiting for people to pop in, we can do it. You got my time for free at the moment, so come on.
I love it. Yeah, I think those are my favorite things you did at the event. When we did our event in September, was just doing the Q&A and just like, yeah, it was like everyone got like tailored advice, and it was, yeah, we got some great feedback on that. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, I got a quick question.
Come on.
All right, how are you using AI?
A couple different ways. Honestly, we use a lot of marketing material for AI. We use a little bit. We've got some scrapers that scrape some data and it cleans some of it up. But frankly, we're not extremely deep in it. In this part of the business, in our marketing world, we are, but that's really education and not real estate. So there's not a huge amount. One of the things that I found was tricky about this part of the business is that there's a lot less technology that works well for what we're doing at our level. And I mean, you can spend a lot of money and invest on technology, but you know, at this point you say like, where does it become worth it? Like if you're going to do a real meaningful push to build some special tech, like it's not cheap, you know? And the best I can tell, a lot of the stuff that's out there isn't just remarkably game changing the way it's set up for what we do right now. Like people buy leads like crazy and you say, well, they use data. Like, how do you make that work? But our data comes out of the deed records, the land record, like the deed records, the docket searches, stuff like that. And other than just pulling that data and then flat out getting on the phone in a bunch of very simple situations, I've not seen huge upside in some of those processes yet, but we also haven't spent the time to develop it.
Cool. Can I share one way I used it the other day? It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So with ChatGPT, I've got the plus version. I created a GPT, a real estate advisor, and I went and looked at a property and walked it and videoed the whole thing inside and out. And it spit me an estimate out, a repair estimate of what it thought based on local market cost for construction, it would be to get it in rentable condition or flipping condition. And it was, I'd say it was probably within 10%, but it broke it down by roofing, HVAC, electrical, windows. It was pretty powerful. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard of people doing stuff like that. One of the reasons we built our model the way we have is it's so simple. We don't do any repair estimates because we don't do repairs. You're buying so cheap. We turn around to resell in the market and make multiples what flippers do. So for us, we never need to estimate stuff like that. You know, when you buy a property, it's got a piece of shit mobile home or a crummy house on 6 acres, valued at $100,000 for the land, and we're buying it for 10 grand. We don't really care what the repairs cost. I'm not pooping on your like model because I'm hearing people like, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of people using it smart ways, but like in this side of it, we still struggle to use that, you know?
Fair enough. That makes sense. But yeah, like you said, I've tried to build some, I live in North Carolina, and I tried to build a GPT to look at all the lawyer websites to do foreclosures and build me a model automatically. And I just haven't been able to do that yet, where it's easy.
Right. You know, for us, probably the biggest answer is pulling stuff out of court dockets simply, and looking through the information that way. But, you know, you really have to get good at it because when you're reading those court documents, they're not super simply formatted documents. You know, a lot of times documents are done differently. Like literally the same county will file tax pleadings differently for some different cases. So you know, you just got to build it out right. And it just hasn't been worth it for us yet. You know, we ask ourselves, like, what's our bottleneck? Our bottleneck isn't really the data. Our bottleneck is dealing with idiots and resolving problems and getting people across the finish line. That's our bottleneck. So for us, I wouldn't focus on anything that's not a bottleneck. So for tech, like a lot of our data comes right into our CRM that's being scraped by very simple things that aren't really super AI driven. So I say, well, that's not a bottleneck. So I don't know that I would go out and spend a ton of money to fix something that's not a bottleneck, you know? We're trying to fix bottlenecks all the time because that's where it opens up the revenue. Instead of going to fix something that doesn't open up revenue, it's just cool.
Electric recording entrance.
Yeah, for me, we use a lot of AI.
You got a minute for a quick
Some
question?
of the ways we're using it, I mean, I use it for everything. So we do a lot of stuff on the tech side. So when we use it for coding, but really anytime I can use it, I'll use it. Like anything I'm trying to research something, if you're looking to market, really whatever. The more data you give it, the better it does. And I think it's just like the more it starts to learn you, the more memories it has, the better it's going to like write like you, the better it's going to like help you think, plan and put together business plans and ideas. But that's mostly I use it for a lot of copywriting, emails. Like, I'm like kind of like, feel like almost like dumb now without it because like I'm typing email out, it takes me forever, but I can just be like, hey, ChatGPT, I want to say this, and it'll spit out the email for me, and it sounds just like me, and it'll just save you a bunch of time. So really, just like little things like that. Like I'll use it to save time. As far as like researching, I think it's great. Writing emails, we have chat bots, but those are some of the ways we use it.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get this show on the road. We're just about 10 minutes in or so.
Let's do it. All right. Well, I'm excited, man. So yeah, let's dive right into it. So yeah, if guys, I think you guys have the chat on the side. If you guys have any questions, feel free. But man, I'm excited to do this, man. You have Logan, you have your event coming up right around the corner. Super excited to hang out with you there in Phoenix. What's that? We're like a month away.
Yep. 40 days ish.
40 days. Okay. Yeah, it's coming up quick, man. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, if you guys haven't heard of the event, definitely recommend checking it out. I'll drop the link there for you guys to check it out. But yeah, it's gonna be really cool. Do you want to tell us a bit about the event before we get started?
Yeah. I hate real estate events where there's like a lot of different people pitching you stuff all the time, and I never wanted to do it like that. So we made it a training, and I looked at it and said, okay, people aren't going to pay me to come here and just have people pitch stuff to them. They're going to pay me to get smarter, faster. So it was important that I felt like I would give back far more than they were paying. So that's how we set it up. So we basically outlined the event with all the processes in our business. So I talked about the high level stuff. What kind of business do you really even want? Well, people don't even know that in the beginning. They just want money. They want way more money than they have. And they don't realize they want a lifestyle business. So they want intermediate, or they want this big monster like thing that I've kind of built, or even bigger. They want that. What's that look like? So I talked about the journey and the pathway and really recognize what it is they want. Then we get into technical. We talk about what a lead is. We've got 45-minute sections from different people in my company and one person who's third party. We talk about what a lead is, how to find them. We research. Jordan's going to talk about where the leads come from, show how to research them, from dockets to tax rolls to tax offices, to land records. He'll go through and show the research. Then we'll talk about negotiating and seller psychology. What's going on with these people? Like, why are they willing to sell it to you for $500 or $5,000 above any debt? Why? We talk about that. And a big gap we had at one point is people didn't know what to say. Well, I'm excited. I got them on the phone. Oh shit. What do I say? You need a script. You need an idea. So we have that covered now. And then we've got attorneys, because laws are different across states. So we've got 2 different attorneys that work with us that help talk about the differences between probate states, non-probate states, and how to execute the ownership disputes or the orphaned estates quickly and simply, or decide that you shouldn't do it because you can't do it that way. So there's risks, pros and cons. We talk about that. What was the other one? We added another big section to it too. Deal structuring. And then of course, then we go into a meat of running the business. We also have private investigators that tell you how to help find people in a much more detailed way, and have a bunch of case studies. So if you're anywhere near real estate and you walk out of here and paid attention, you should know where you're going. We have tons of people who walk out of there and they're like, Logan, like they literally go do deals after that. Now, that ain't everybody, I'll tell you, but it's a lot of them.
100%. I love it. Yeah, no, we do events on like a smaller scale, but I mean, I think you spoke at most of our events. And yeah, you definitely, everybody gets a bunch of great takeaways. I get a bunch of great takeaways, and there's always like some gold nugget. Then like if you have something like in mind, I always tell people, like, if you're going to an event, like have a problem you're looking to solve, or like have something you're looking to do, and like look for the answer, then implement it. Right. And I just love how you structure your events, and you literally have it from like A to Z. Like here's exactly what to do. It's no fluff, no BS. Like, it's not a pitch fest. Like, I hate those events too. And you got to just real value. So man, I think it's awesome what you guys are doing. I'm super excited for it.
Show up, listen, go home, do that, earn some money.
But it's
Well,
all about.
I figured we talk about landlocked property today. We've spent a lot of time talking on the internet about what it is we do. At this point, everybody knows we're buying property with ownership, title problems, disputes, things like that, and solving it and making money. But some of these technical things are the parts where even when folks figure out how to do the low-hanging fruit deals, the generally simple one, just an owner or two and maybe one judgment, those are simple. And I recommend people go build a business out of those first, because they're base hits. You can knock them out. You can find them quick. You can knock them out quick. You can get paid quick. That's really important. But as you get that to happen, you start to bring your revenue up. You start to make money. You're feeling good about yourself. Now you want to take on these complicated deals, bigger price deals. Today we have, I don't even know how many deals that are worth 1 million or more in our pipeline. It's like insane. And we rarely pay more than 300,000 a piece for them. So as you work your way, and the risk goes up on that, but the complexity may or may not, but you got to be able to pay for them. So you start out paying $500, $5,000 above debt. Now today I ripped a $250,000 check last week to buy a property for 25 cents on the dollar, and like closed in 4 days on the thing. Got some hair on it, but as you work your way up that price spectrum, it gets easier, and you can start to take on these kinds of deals. So does anybody have any quick questions about landlocked property before I dig in? Anyone? All right.
Logan. Yeah, Logan, what's up, man?
Hey.
How are we? I'm curious on the properties that are all like $1 million plus. I mean, are you typically seeing that those are portfolios? Are they land deals? Are they house? I know it's kind of asset class agnostic, but typically on average, what is it? Is it land?
More commonly it's land, and we have to be able to sell it for less than it's worth. So a lot of stuff, like right now we've got one, I'll show you, actually. You're gonna laugh at this. Appraisal came back today, of all days. And where is this sucker? Let me pull it out of my email. Here it is. Can anyone see that number?
Nah,
No,
Damn
no
it.
blur.
I want y'all
just
to
like
see it.
The shine here. I don't know what you call it. The glare.
Black. 3.456 million. It's 50 acres right outside of a big MSA. Typically it's land. I mean, we'll get houses in the $1 to $2 million range. We got one that's like 4 or 5 million right now. That's a home with a lot of land. But when you start finding homes that are worth $1, $2, $3, $5 million, it's rare they have major title problems. So you'll see that on the lower end of the million spectrum. But when you're starting to get into multi-millions, it's usually land. I think I've got an apartment complex one time. I did buy my office, and I've gotten a couple warehouses, but the bulk of it really is land. Land, if you're going to your office every day, you're more often going to solve the problems when they have them. If you're going to your home every day, it's a $2 million house, more often you're going to solve it. When you got that land at the edge of town that you never go to, it's like out of sight, out of mind. That's where that can build. Now, because the market's a little crummy and soft everywhere, it might be worth 2.3 million, but we're going to sell for 1.7 to make it move, or 3.4, whatever it is. We have to sell it for 20-25% less than that. Otherwise it'll sit for 6 months or a year. That help?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So
Looks like Chris did have one question in the chat too. You said, are there any landlocked that you can't unlock?
there is usually a solve, but what I'll tell you, it's more important is the juice worth the squeeze. So a lot of people think landlocked property is, a lot of people think, oh, it's landlocked, we can fix it, and you can, but if the property is really far back off the road, like let's say it's 2 acres, it's worth 100 grand, but it's a quarter mile off the road and there's no road. Well, once you get legal access to it, whether you sue or negotiate or whatever, you find an old easement. Oh shit, that's the last one. I forgot about that one. Let me write that one in there. Hold on. Okay. You can do all those things, but sometimes it just gets to be like unworth it. Like we built roads. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building roads because we bought something that was worth 600-700 grand for literally $10,000 because no one could get to it. The neighbor was a piece of shit and they were fighting with people and arguing and pulling guns and stuff like that. So we bought it, filed a lawsuit, solved the problems, and then we send dozers out there and build a road. And it's tricky because you might have to spend 100 grand to build that road. So that's why you have to size all this up in the beginning. The good part is usually there's not a rush to close these. When someone is about to lose their property to tax sale in 6 days and they're willing to take like 2 grand above payoff for a $200,000 house, dude, you better pay that motherfucker before the sun sets, dude. If not, I might be doing it. So there's a rush to the finish line. But in this case, there ain't nobody fighting over landlocked land. Like, well, other than the neighbors, but like there's no buyers like us really doing it. So you have plenty of time. So usually with landlocked property, I'll contract it and get myself 90, 120 days. And I tell the seller, look, this thing ain't worth nothing. Like, that's why I'm only giving you 5 grand for it. You've been sitting on it for years and years and years and years anyway. What's another 120 days? And I'll give them like $1,000 for option money. So like, it's been sitting around for 10 years. I get a 120-day contract for $1,000. I'll walk away. Who cares? I'll lose $1,000, but I get 120 days to do the diligence. And I will never close on landlocked land unless I know how to solve it for sure. That's why I say sometimes it's just not worth doing it, but the risk is really low because you can solve the problem. And if you can't solve it, you just call your option and walk away. So Matt asked if these are all tax delinquent. No, actually, most of the landlocked deals are not tax delinquent, which makes it easier because they're going to have plenty of time. So let me tell you how the structure up front works. Depending on where you're looking, some of these appraisal districts will have a category like in their export that says landlocked or no frontage, or depends on the jurisdiction. You have to sort around and figure that out. That's one way to do it, by pulling the data. Another way is you can literally get Land Glide, which I guess y'all probably can't see my phone worth a flip anyway. But you can get Land Glide and go into an area that you've been working and literally just scan around until you see land that's locked. Like, it's generally that easy to see it. We get a lot of referrals for it, but it's very easy to spot. So approach the owner, talk to them. Many times they're willing to play ball. I'll go ahead and get a contract, but before I start working on it, the very first thing I'll do is just approach neighbors. Because here's the deal. Like, you want to solve the landlocked, right? But the very small ownership group that it is not landlocked to is the adjoining neighbors. If they have a driveway to get on their property and they can get through it to this one, it's not landlocked for them. So you'd be shocked how many times we've sold land to a neighbor and the owner just never called the friggin' neighbor. Now, I'm not getting full pop for it, but if you can do it, you turn around immediately. You don't have to do any repairs, no solves, no legal fees, no roads, no fences, no none of that shit. You just sell it immediately. So that's like how to unlock land. Step 1 is sell it to a neighbor and their access unlocks your tract. And that's usually the fastest way. Let me back up one step before we get into this. So it's technically not illegal to make land locked. Like, there's not a law that says like it is illegal to create landlocked land. But when it talks about conveyances, you must be able to sell land. You must sell land with access. So it's kind of inherent in the transaction. So if you don't do that, you're kind of breaking a law. It's civil. It's not criminal. Ain't nothing ever going to happen to you. And there's no damages, no repercussions or anything like that, but it happens all the time. So that situation, how the landlocked property is caused, is usually the factor that you're going to need to unwind, which is where the different laws come in to solve it. So there is also no law that says this is how to fix landlocked land in the law books. But what happens is if you don't have that's statutory law. So if you don't have statutory law, the stuff that the legislator votes on and they enact and they send out that notice that says this is a new law, if you don't have law like that, then what happens is people get into arguments, they file lawsuits, and if it makes it to the Supreme Court, the rendering at the Supreme Court becomes case law or common law is what they call it too. We have 4 different ones that affect landlocked land because there have been 4 very typical scenarios where land has become locked and there's a equitable relief in the court system. So the judge renders that at the Supreme Court. When that happens, that's law. So our law for landlocked land is actually common law. It's not statutory law. It's just happened over time as the judges have ruled. So there are 4 different renderings that basically cause the 4 different types of law that you can use to unlock land. But the step before is just don't go unlock it, sell it to a neighbor. That's like the dummy answer. Now, I'll give you the easiest answer first. Is basically while you're under contract, call the other neighbors and just try to buy an easement. People so many times come up with all these fancy legal ideas, and I'm like, did you just call fucking Johnny and offer to give him $10,000 for him to give you a 25-foot wide easement off the side of his land all the way to the road? And everybody's like, I didn't think of that. And I'm like, dude, you're so close in the forest, you can't see the trees. That's the dummy answer. Just pay for it. Sometimes people want you to pay the land value. So we go back to what I talked about a minute ago. Maybe it's X amount of acres. So let's just say it's 400 feet times 25 feet. That's 10,000 square feet. And you have 43,000 square feet to an acre. So that's about a quarter of an acre. So you might pay him a whole price of an acre, even though you're only getting a quarter of an acre because you're taking a little bit of his land. But if you put it in a spot where it's not a big problem, it's not really so bad. That happens, I don't know, 1 in 5 times probably. Either sell it to a neighbor, that solves it. The next one is just buy an easement from the guy or gal in front of you. That's a very simple solve as well. And the neat thing is, you remember I'm talking about, you write a contract on it, put an option period on it, and go try to do these things. And if they don't work, it's very easy to say, no, forget it. I'm just going to back out and walk away. So you're getting the contract and you're coming up with like multiple projects before that closing day. So that when the closing day comes, you're done. I did one of these in Conroe, Texas. Actually, be a great case study. I'll tell you about it in a little while. Hold on, let me make a note so I don't forget. And King and Lake. All right. Now, the third answer that's the dummy answer, and this probably works 1 in 5, 1 in 6 times. The land is not actually locked. And people say, well, I don't see a road. But what you don't understand is most roads aren't actually visible. Roads are actually filed in the land records and the commissioner's court records. Roads have to be created before we show up and build them in person. You'd be shocked how many roads are out there that were basically ratified by the commissioner's court, put in place, or a developer filed a plat and created a road and got approval from the county, put it in the land records, but never went out there with bulldozers and rock and asphalt and curbs and gutters and fences and shit and built it. So where I'm going with that is, when you find a property you think is landlocked, the first thing I'll do before even first thing I'll try to sell it to the neighbor. Second thing, I'll do this second thing before I try to buy a driveway. I'll go in and take the legal description of this tract and search it in the land records, and it'll give me the last owner. And I'll basically title search back to back for the last 50 years, see if I can find an easement that's indexed by all those owners' names. So get all the grantor, grantee. And with land, it doesn't transact as often. So you might get 6 owners, grantors, grantees. Dump their name into the land records and see if you can find an easement recorded to their name. Those are the only people typically that an easement will be recorded to. And when you record an easement, it's grantor, grantee. It's a grant, just like a grant deed is. So an easement is a very similar conveyance. I'm shocked how many times we find easements in the land records that no one knew that was there. No one said they knew it was there. The title company missed, surveyors missed, and no one went out there with a skid steer, put a bunch of rock and cleaned off the grass and made a driveway. So that's the other dummy answer that exists. neighbors. Hold on, I'm making some notes. So I don't forget some of the stuff. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah. So if you find the easement, Logan, are you
Yeah.
going and getting a new survey done in order
Yep.
to like understand where the, okay.
Basically, when you get that easement, it'll be like in a plat, like a survey or meets and bounds. I usually call a surveyor and have them go out there and stake it. And sometimes landowners talk some shit, but I have the surveyor take that out there and I'll send someone out there with them. Sometimes they have to call the sheriff if the landowner gives them a bunch of trouble. But I've had people cause real problems over that, just arguing basically, because they're like, what are you doing on my land? Well, motherfucker, it's not yours, according to this paper that we're about to stake and prove up. So yeah, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Okay. So now there are four, I mean, I want to make sure that we have time for some case studies, but there are 4 different ways. And I have examples here that it's taken me forever to like get all together. But once you have a property under contract, if you can't approach the neighbors to sell it, if you can't purchase an easement from a neighbor, you can't sell them the property, and you deed search this thing or title search it, and you can't find an easement, the next step is to go into one of these common law remedies, and you need to get a title report from a title company so you can see the deeds and basically just read who sold what, and this is what you're going to reveal. So I'm going to give you the first one. It's called easement by necessity. And so that I don't get into explaining a bunch of legal complicated shit, I'm going to give you the simple answer. If a rancher sells off the back 20 acres to his 100-acre ranch, the back 20 acres has no road access except for through the front 80 that the rancher kept. But because both tracts were owned by the same person, the sale created a landlocked problem. The buyer that bought the back 20 can file an easement by necessity lawsuit against the front owner. So here's the way it actually happens in real life. Dad owns 100 acres. He gives or sells the back 20 to his cousin, his brother, his buddy, whatever. And they just drive through the fence line of the front 80 for 20 or 30, 40 years. The dad dies, and then somebody gets the property, they inherit it, they sell it. The dude in the back still keeps driving through the same property. Eventually someone gets crossways or someone sells and says, you can't drive through my property. And when you say, well, yeah, I can't, it's my driveway. They say, no, it's not. Prove it. We don't have an easement. Well, when he sold it to me, he said I could. Well, you didn't put it in the land records. Fine. File. If you can find that condition where the back property was once joined to the front property, and because of the severance, it created the landlocked condition, that's your common law basis for a lawsuit, easement by necessity. You file it. If that's the fact pattern, you're going to win it. I've won these before multiple times.
And
So
is
that's
that
your-
a federal thing or state? Is that different per state or what?
Yeah, these are state. So I'm going to explain the 4 that I'm aware of. Every once in a while, one state will have a random different one. And sometimes states will have 3 of these or 1 of these or all 4 of these. So depending on your jurisdiction, you're going to have to research which ones are effective in your jurisdiction. But these are the common ones that you'll see across the United States typically. And the top 3, buy from the neighbor, search for the hidden easement, or sell to a neighbor. Those are universal anywhere because that's just like human deals. You know what I mean? So that's easement by necessity. I wish I had some diagrams. Next time I'm going to do that. Okay, so this is called a quasi easement. So it's easement by prior existing use. I'll give you my example here. So before the property was split, the owner always used a gravel road crossing the west half to reach the east half. After selling that west half, the buyer then blocks the road. Because that road was already being used, it was obvious and it was in place in time of the easement. The buyer from the eastern tract can claim the prior easement. So it's a little different than the first one because it's basically, this is how it's been. It's always been this way. The easement by necessity, the first one I talked about, if the back person uses the road, nice. If they never used it as a road, it still works this way. In this case, it's because they've been using it, is generally how it works out. Let's see here. Easement by estoppel, that's going to be your third one. Basically, a landowner tells a neighbor, you can always use my driveway to get to your lot. So it's kind of like an oral agreement. And the landowner relying on that agreement goes to his property that might be landlocked. He never gets a formal easement. He never does anything. never really does anything to keep that up or to get it formalized. But the issue is this is really hard to prove a lot of times. Like you got to have emails or someone must have been around to hear it. You know, proof is really hard on this one. So it's really a challenge to actually make these work. I've never had luck with these, but I've never had the situation exist like this for me. So the last one is a prescriptive easement. So like a rural landowner uses like a dirt path across like a neighbor's field to reach the county road for more than 10 continuous years. It has to be open, visible, and without permission. The neighbor never stopped it, and that long-term use can result in a prescriptive easement. So it's almost like adverse possession, I guess is a good way to put it. Let me make that note. Yeah, there is some real like adverse possession, but the kicker here is you got to be able to prove it. So do you have neighbors that will swear to it? Do you have GIS maps? Like go to Google Maps and you can go 10 years back. And if you see that truck path through the property, it's obvious what's been going on there. So now you're starting to see like, these are the 4 common law remedies that you'll usually, that you're usually going to run into. But it's very hard to think up another situation that would cause this because there are only limited amounts of ways that the land can be locked. You know what I mean? Has anybody dealt with any of these before? Chris?
I haven't, but I actually have a real life example if you want me to share my screen.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. That's a perfect way to do this.
Well, I guess I can't share my screen, or unless someone gives me access.
Shit, I don't know how to do that.
Anybody know how to give me access?
I don't. Kai doesn't normally use Teams, so he probably doesn't.
No, I don't either.
That's fine. I guess I can. It would be better, I guess, if I could share my screen. But yeah,
Just
so there's
put
a
a
tax
GPS
foreclosure.
pin in the chat. Just put a GPS pin in the chat.
Yeah, with the land glide pin.
Let me
do
click
that
on
real
it and
quick.
see what I can find. Someone just shared while I'm trying to verify it. Oh, I'm not logged in on the screen.
All right, let's see if I can get where I can. It's not letting me. Chat.
Can you screen clip a picture in the chat and we can look at it? I can blow it up and share it.
Yeah. If I can get it to let me do the chat real quick. Let me snip it. All right. It's not giving me access to the chat. Hold on. It says chat only available during the meeting, which is now. Well, this is not letting me.
Not letting you do it. Okay.
No,
I'll
it's
sorry
not.
about that.
Video effects. Yeah, I don't know why it's not letting me do it for some reason. But
Okay.
I'll give you a quick gist of it. So
Let's hear
I've
it.
bought several tax foreclosures over the years, and there is a it's in Harnett County, North Carolina, and it'll be later next month where it goes up to bid. It's 10 acres. It's landlocked. I've driven out there. I've done some deed research on the guy whose name it's currently in. I can't find any easements at all. If you look at some
Oh.
pictures,
Shit, hold on. Let me interrupt you. I forgot. I talked about deed researching the owner tract. That's your first step to find out if there was a grant to a prior owner. I
Yeah.
forgot to tell you the other step. You have to title search all the adjoining tracts.
Yeah.
Because they could have granted to this person too. That's how we usually find it. My bad. Sorry. Once you said that, I was like, boom.
yeah, so I've done that. I went in the register of deeds for the county. I looked at all surrounding property owners. I looked for plats that have been recorded. I couldn't find anything. But what you were just saying about the usage, There is a track that the property in front, it looks like I've used to this property in the past, because you can see it just on Landglide. And even though I can't find anything, deeds, nothing like that, plats, and I can't remember the term you used, that had been because these were all owned by the same owner previously. It's just the one that is getting tax foreclosed is the one that's landlocked. And the ones in front of it to the road were sold off years ago.
Okay. How cheap? What do you think it's worth? How far is it from the road, roughly?
Of 200 feet.
100, 200. Okay. Not very far. What is it worth if it's unlocked? Like it is just fair comparables.
Yeah. I mean, the tax value was like $36,000. There's a pond on it.
I fucking walk away, dude. It's not worth it. You can't even get yourself a 200-foot road. I mean, what are you gonna get this thing for? It's not worth it.
Cool.
I wouldn't do it. Here's a couple reasons why. You're gonna have to build some kind of road. I mean, even if you make it basic, where you send a skid steer out and pull the topsoil off and just put a little gravel so a truck can like get over there without sinking in the mud when it rains, that would be the most basic road. And we do that more often than anything else. I mean, that's still going to cost you $5,000 or $10,000. And then let's just say, so you would have the first example of the lawsuit that I talked about earlier. The first example was the easement by necessity. That's what you would have. So you would have to go to the neighbor in the front, and I'll give you a case study in a minute. I had that happen to me. I went to the neighbor in the front and said, hey man, there was a mistake here. It got landlocked. I'll pay you to give me an easement. I'll pay the lawyer. I'll pay the surveyor. We'll file the land records. I'll give you $5,000 or $10,000. He told me to eat a dick. So I ended up having to file the lawsuit against the guy. That lawsuit cost me $25,000. Now our land was worth hundreds of thousands. So we had plenty of room. But like with a $35,000 tract, you don't even have room to spend $5,000 or $10,000 on legal, $5,000 or $10,000 improving a road. And then you got to pay to buy the thing. And then you have no margin.
Yeah. I mean, that's the tax value. I think the like what I could realistically sell it for would be like 60. 70 based on comps around it.
Still not worth it. What happens if that guy fights you? Like that other dude fought me. I've defaulted on these and won like in a $5,000 lawyer fee. And then I've had people fight me and I'm over here spending $30,000, $40,000, and I'm still going to beat them. I'm going to win. The fact pattern is what it is. And there are no exceptions, but they just fight like assholes. Like when you're dealing with wealthy people or you're dealing with bigger landowners, dude, they'll fight you because they don't give a fuck. Like they just do. So I won't touch these things unless they're worth a couple $100,000 at least.
Cool. I get it.
Sorry, not to be like a knucklehead.
Well, you're a little bit bigger scale than little old Blake Rogers from North Carolina. So, I mean, if I can make, $50,000
I bet you I bet you every dollar you spend on that, there's no way you're going to buy a $60,000 tract for $10,000 at the courthouse and make $50,000. There's absolutely no way. Like I bet my firstborn on that one, dude. And I love her to death. I'm telling you, I've tried so many times in a row. The only way I would do those $50,000 deals is like I used to do back in downtown San Antonio. The lot was worth $50,000. They had $5,000 owed in taxes, and I'd pay $5,000 to a seller. And it was simple. There was no easement problems. I might have to deal with a judgment or something or negotiate a brother, but like, I know I'm in it for 20 or 30 cents on the dollar. And I don't have just like the problem is you can't size your risk up enough. I mean,
for sure.
It's tax sale. Like if this was just a arm length transaction, you get a contract for 4 months and then go talk to the neighbors and find yourself and you really wanted, I still would tell you don't do it. But if you just didn't want to listen to me and you would have to come back in here and say, I should have listened to you, Logan, but you still want to try anyway.
I probably would.
And that's what, and you know what? At the end of the day, I can't stop people from doing this stuff, but I can help you get richer faster if you'll learn from the mistakes that I did after doing tens of millions of dollars a year in this. But if you still want to try it, get a contract on it and go try to figure it out. But because the tax sale deal, you can't do that.
Yeah, so I haven't done the getting a contract prior to it. I just bought them all from because in North Carolina, you bid on them and there's a 10-day upset bid period. And then like I've been on properties now, I've been doing it for 6-8 weeks.
Yeah.
So doing that up in front, there's a lot of value to that.
Here's what I'll tell you to do. Forget about the tax sale. Why don't you go get on Landglide where that property is and literally back out and just start scanning. Like if I could show you my phone, I would literally just go to rural Texas or rural Georgia, and I'd go to Atlanta, Georgia downtown. I'd scan in so I'd back out. So I'd get outside of the city, and then I'd scan in at a rural area and literally just start scanning the tracks. You can literally pin the tail on the donkey within 20 minutes. And you can choose, you can find something that's closer to the road, all those things. Like tax sale is a lot of nice leads, but in this case, it's a little riskier. And also in the tax sale and deals like this, I would go and talk to people before it goes to the sale and try to get a contract with them if you have enough time.
Yeah, that's a little bit of conflict with me when I have a day job too. But the plan is to eventually get away from that. But I'm with you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let me give you 2 case studies. I've talked about one a little bit. Let me give you this case study. I got a call from a wholesaler. There was a deal out in a little north of Houston, Montgomery County. Property was 7 acres. There were about half a dozen owners. It was like $4,000 or $5,000 behind on taxes or something like that. And the wholesaler wanted $5,000. So there was something like 10,000 committed in that case. And we talked to the family. They were willing to take, between the taxes, the wholesaler, and the family, it totaled to be like $15,000. So it wasn't like crazy money. I looked at the property and realized if it wasn't landlocked, it'd probably worth about 150 to 200,000. So I remember making a super low offer to these people. They also need an affidavit of ownership, but that wasn't a big deal. So we contracted with them, and we had 120 days, I think is what it was. We jumped into land records and literally found our easement. This is the very first one we ever did. We found our easement within, I don't know, it might have taken us a day and a half to search, but we had a contract. We had everybody locked in, and the family was like, it's been locked for over a generation. Daddy knew it was locked. We all know it's locked. Can't do anything with it. And I'm like, all right, well, let us try. And they're like, sure, we'll take the money. We title searched this tract and went back. In this case, we went back 50 years and couldn't find it. So we went back 100 years. That wasn't that many owners because land doesn't change hands as often. So we have half a dozen owners over 100 years. We write down grantor and grantee, write down all their names. Then we grab the grantor and grantee search of the 4 adjoining tracts. Grantor, grantee, all the names. We might have like 30 or 40 names. Then we start dumping their names in the land records and looking for easements. We found a partition plat where the old man's parents had the property and they couldn't get along with their siblings. So they went to court, filed a partition lawsuit, hired a surveyor, and did a partition plat. So each sibling, there are 4 tracts in a row, and there's an easement that went right down it, and we were the last one. And the grass had grown up and it looked landlocked, and a neighbor had bought one of the other tracts and was running his horses through it and had it all fenced off. Once we realized this, we went out and surveyed it, sent the survey in along with the old plat to the title company, and the title escrow officer was like, oh my God, I can't believe we missed this. Well, at that point, it's unlandlocked. We got title insurance policy. We closed in like 6 weeks on the deal by the time it was all said and done. It was actually easier than we thought. The next situation is we drove out there and had to talk to the neighbor. And the neighbor said, you pull that fence down, you let my racehorse out, I'm going to sue you. And I said, well, we're taking the fence down. And he goes, well, then you need to give me some notice. And I said, I'm here today. This is your notice. The dozer's coming tomorrow. I mean, it was a shit show. He calls the cops come out. I had all of our documentation, title policy, survey, easement. There are survey stakes out there. I showed it all to him. And I remember he called the county commissioner, which is a small area. He probably shouldn't have done that, but he did. Commissioner came out, looked at it all, and told the neighbor, he comes out here with a dozer. I ain't doing nothing to him. So we scraped that topsoil, put a bunch of rock out there, built a nice road, about 200, 300 foot. And we sold it for $175,000. We spent $50,000 on that road. So when it was all said and done, we still made about 100 on it, but we didn't have litigation. Looking back, I wouldn't have touched that one now unless I could have solved it before we close. So on this kind of stuff, I'm looking for $100,000, $200,000 margin. Here's the other thing. I got to tell you, Blake, I'm not picking on you, but I'm just telling you, there's so many of these everywhere. I know you got this one in front of you and you're like, it's right there, but I'm not kidding you. Within a mile, there's another. Why don't you go do all the same work on a property that's worth $300,000 than on one that's worth 50? It's the same work. And I know you say, like, I know you guys are so big and looking for like more money, but like you can be small and look for more money, and it's in the same places.
No, good point. I mean, you're right. You know, I can grow, and do that. I've been financing everything personally from a cash perspective, so that I am
That's good.
limited, you know, from that as from a deal size perspective. But I have had people, you know, talk to people about, you know, helping from a capital perspective, which
Dude, get creative. If you can get
Yeah.
the contract on it and figure the problem out, and all you need is the money to pay at closing, at that point, you go get a hard money loan.
yeah,
You can call some other investor and jump in. Like, you know what I'm saying? But the work to do the $60,000 deal is the same work to do the $150,000, $170,000 deal that I did. And it's the same as doing a $350,000 one that I just finished. It doesn't cost any more. These people are willing to walk away. They don't give a shit. They're done with it.
Can you talk about what kind of terms you put in the option contract?
It's basic, dude. Price,
Okay.
you're selling it to me. It's an option. I really could care less. I just want to know that I got the legal description, the buyer, the seller, the price, and an option. It's very simple. It's a 3-pager for stuff like this. Super simple.
Okay, and the
I don't complicate
120
it. It's-
days, 6 months. Is that what you? Okay.
Get as long as you can. I mean, I've had people call me when I say that, and they'll call me for a solution. We're talking. I was like, how long's your contract? And they're like, I got 24 months. I'm like, Jesus Christ. How'd you sell that? But, you know, honestly, I usually don't need more than, 34 months. I'll ask for that. If I can get more, I don't really need it usually. Or if you make it through 3 or 4 months and you think you know where you're going, it's time to go back and clean up the deal with them a little bit. Amend it if you really need it. Okay, let me give you this other example. Golly, man, I have all these that are now coming to mind. Okay, this one was in Canyon Lake, Texas. It was 2 acres. And it was going to the tax sale, $5,000 each. No, it was $5,000 owed between the two. So it was $2,500 in taxes each. I remember calling the owner, and I actually didn't know how to solve it yet. But I remember calling the owner and telling him, hey, it's going to the tax sale. And he's like, dude, I'm just going to let it go. I said, well, let me give you $5,000. So I gave him $5,000 for the deed, and I gave $5,000 to the tax office, and I got it. I didn't buy title insurance. But at this point, I didn't really care. And what happened is the property was owned by his father, who was going to subdivide all this land. And he started selling parcels off, and he was going to build a road through it. And his dad kept this big piece of the tract. Him and his dad didn't get along anymore. His dad was going to build a road, and he was selling his land for his friends and family for good deals. And he's like, I'm going to build this road. He never built the road. So remember that first example that we talked about was easement by necessity. Once I did the deed research and started to figure this out, I realized the master tract is what locked the servient tract, and they were once enjoined. And I thought, oh, this is again an easement by necessity. This is the first one I had. This is how I learned it. So I called the guy and was like, hey, looks like we got a landlocked problem here. Can I pay you to, get this easement or whatever? And it was a mess. We were tracking this guy down, talking to his girlfriend, talking to him. He was telling us to get lost. He was telling us he was going to kill us, all this shit like that. He was nuts. So he went to jail for trying to murder the mailman. He was a bail bond agent. Long story. We never deal with this shyster. But we ended up filing, this is the one I gave the example of that earlier. We ended up filing the easement by necessity lawsuit against him. And the guy fought me for some reason. I don't know why. Well, we got a final order by the judge because we won. We had a bench trial. Judge ordered. Actually, that's what it was. We ordered a bench trial. The judge agreed. We were getting ready to go to trial. And about a week beforehand, his lawyer called him and was like, hey, dude, you're going to lose. Like, you might as well cut a deal with him. So he came back to us and said, hey, do you want to cut a deal? Do you want to give me that money you're going to tell me? I was like, no, I spent on legal fees. But if you sign the easement, I'll drop the lawsuit. Otherwise, I'll just go get the judgment. So we negotiated an easement for a couple of weeks. I got the easement. Then I sent the surveyor out. He gave us the meets and bounds, surveyed it. We included that, signed the easement, recorded in the land records. And we didn't have to go to trial on it, but we did have to litigate the easement by necessity. And that one, if the dude wouldn't have shown up, I could have gotten a default for $5,000. But because he showed up and was just an asshole, it cost me $25,000. Now, that property's worth $250,000. I paid 20. I built the road for maybe like 50 or 60, maybe 25 in legal. I was all in the whole thing for like 100, and I sold it for 250, I think is what it was. So I ended up netting 100, 125 when it was all done. So it was a good return, but I actually expected a bigger return because I didn't think we were going to have to spend so much in legal fees. And that road cost more than I thought too. It was a caliche road. We had to pack it, put a lot of layers on it, but it was just, it became more than we thought. So those are probably the only examples that I have that we have time for today. The other one was in Bear County. I bought it for 10,000. It was worth 350. And I was going to build a road, went through all this bullshit, negotiate with the neighbors, and I ended up calling the neighbor who's a farmer. He had like 300 acres. Mine was 10 acres. Land was 30,000 an acre, 35,000 an acre, something like that. And I ended up selling it to him for 250. So he raked me over the coals a little bit, but I also didn't have to file a lawsuit. I didn't have to build a road. I didn't have to do any of that bullshit. And I still made like $220,000 off of 10 grand. So because I'm familiar with you, and this is a good example, I'm going to go back to you, Blake. My $10,000 that you spent at the tax sale is the same 10 grand I spent to make 200. You see how that capital can go much further if you're picking differently?
Oh yeah. So what was your revenue per hour on that?
Oh God, tens of thousands of dollars an hour. I literally didn't do shit but call neighbors. We had the thing, we got busy. We didn't touch it for months because it was just cheap. We got it through an inventory and started fiddling around with it later. We didn't deal with it for it was probably a year. But I bet we spent 10 hours, maybe 20 hours on that deal.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you find a lot more of those? That's the
That one was referred to us. It was from a local wholesaler who tried to go sell it and they ended up having problems. So the wholesaler called me and I remember telling him, look, we're not paying jack, like $10,000. And the seller was like, yeah, fine, sure. But people a lot of times ask, like, how does Tom Brady like practice for Super Bowl? You know, how does he like get the Super Bowls all the time? It's because he goes out every Sunday and plays, and 4 or 5 days a week he practices and he watches tapes and he takes lots of hits, lots over and over and over, lots of passes, lots of practice. And then every once in a while he winds up in the Super Bowl. So it's the same thing. I got a lot of base hits, and every once in a while I get the home runs because I'm in the game, you know? All right. So this is the best we can do to get into like this in an hour. Did this help? People start to get the framework?
Yeah, and that helped me a lot. I got a bunch of takeaways. Everybody else?
Yeah, it was good info. Even though I got picked on, I'll take it. That's what you get for asking questions, right? You got to be the guy that's going to ask questions. You got to be able to take it a little bit too. So I'm fair enough.
Yo, Logue.
Hey, the good news is the lawyer would charge you $500 an hour to do that shit, and I just did it for free. So how about
There you
that?
go.
Yeah, squeaky wheel gets grease. Don't forget that.
Yeah. Someone just called out a name. We got another question before we.
Hey, Logan, Ryan McRae here. I
Hey.
did the exact same thing. I own 100% interest in a property, bought it from 7 heirs for $18,000 in taxes and $500 for each deed. Goes across 250 acres of a guy's ranch. There's a right-of-way easement that went back 15 years. Now that we're in a little bit of he's a rich guy, so I have to watch what I do. He's a doctor, but ultimately, he's wanting to settle for 150. I could put a road through it and probably put some mobile homes on it but I can't parcel the land because it's sold as residential. But you probably put a road in and sell it for 250, 2.25. But I'm just trying to settle. But it was a quick turn, less than 90 days.
Yeah, if that guy will give you 150, take it, because you're talking about mobile homes. That's a different project. I always look at it as
Right.
what's it worth today, what you in it for now. And if you sue the guy, I mean, you could spend 50 or 100 fees. You never really know.
Sure.
And then you got to build a road across a couple hundred acres. That might cost more than it's even worth.
Yep. The interesting part is that his title company missed it, but now they're coming back and saying that the right-of-way easement doesn't connect to the public road.
Well, a lot of times the right of way is just for utilities. Does it say it's a utility easement or does it say it's an access right of way?
20-foot access road and utility easement.
Well, in that case, you have a stronger case. But at the end of the day, if you can burn and make 150 grand or 100 grand,
They're also saying that the right-of-way easement and road do not transfer when the property was sold because it wasn't listed on the deed, but the deed of trust. But that's arguable again. But trying to settle, see the end, we're just trying. I don't even really want the land. It was done just like you said. Get on top of land glide, see where the tracks go in. You can see there's a track going straight out to that piece of property where the mobile home's at, or an old mobile home. There's a meth lab that's out there right now.
Does that got any value?
I don't think it's occupied at this point, but it's an old.
All right. We probably ought to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, that was great. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's one of the things I like about listening to you and having you at my event selfishly is that like I get to learn something new each time. And like I don't know how many deals when I started I passed on before, and I could hit you up. I'm like, hey, I don't know what to do with this deal. But at Landlocked, I'm like, I don't know. It's just easy to pass on. But I feel like so many people I'm sure listening have had deals that they probably could make money on that they passed on because they didn't know what to do with. So it's man, I'm excited for the event, man. I'm excited to learn more about this stuff.
Good. Well, I'll tell you what, man, we've set it up it's a full day training. If you can come in person, that's obviously best because you get to meet a ton of people. If you can do it virtually, that's to live stream, it's another option. But at the end of the day, for $549, actually, you know what? If y'all want to, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a 20% discount code. Kai's link is down there. If you use this discount code by tomorrow night, by the end of the night, that'll give you 20% off. I just sent it in there. It's NOW20. Oh shit, is it 20 NOW? It's one of those two. That'll give you 20% off. I don't know anywhere else you're going to find this information. And for the same price a lawyer charge you for 1 hour, I'll give you 8 of them full of how we built this business to tens of millions bucks a year. That's probably the best value ever. But does anybody got any questions about that event while we're here? Is anybody going to come?
Matt Cohen said that work on VIP. People ask about VIP. People said
VIP is almost sold out. We usually don't give a lot of discount on that unless you're buying 3 or 4. But we only have a few tickets left for VIP, so I usually try not to discount that.
When asked, can you watch it later if you can't make it that day?
Yeah, dude. Our live stream option gives you the recording. It gets sent to you so you can watch it. Iron sweet. All right. I am not able to. Sam, you can't do it because you don't want to, or you're not able to watch the video afterwards. Okay. Somebody asked what VIP is. I'll tell you. So our general admission is a single day. As Amanda, it's basically 8 to 5, 8 to 6 is what it ends up being. We also have a, what do you call it? An expert panel at the end. We plan to shut it down at 6, but we're just going to continue to run the expert panel. So if you want to stay, then keep listening. Once the room thins out, we'll shut it down. But we have a dinner the night before. That's me, my business partners. We invited a bunch of like high level operators in this space to go to that dinner. We've got our general admission. And then with the VIP, we have a second day. So basically we've cut it down to a really small group. And the first part of the day, we talk on Sunday, that is part of the VIP, that includes like what a business, it's a lot more granular about what building a business actually looks like, because you can go do a couple of deals, but are you working your job on the daytime, doing this on the nighttime? What's that look like? Are you really trying to break out of that? Or are you actually doing this stuff full time or wholesaling? You're trying to convert that into a job. We have that. A lot of that. Also, there's a lot of mindset. Like I was talking to Blake, and I'm not picking on Blake. I'm just saying there's a lot of mindset here that someone who's been doing this for 10 years can give you so that you don't have to go through what I've been through for 10 years to get there faster. I don't know. Great example. Matt Pamphilis is on this call. He can probably tell you better than anybody around. That stuff moves the needle big time for you. That's the first half of the day. The second half of the day, we break it up into 3 groups. It's newbies, intro, like fresh people. We have intermediate, and then we have experience. And we've got folks from our office that go through a full mastermind that matches for their experience level. So that's what our VIP includes. It's a ton of time with us. Yes, Caleb, your acquisition rep can watch it with you, but you have to log in from the same computer. Was this call recorded? I came in super late. Alex, if you email Shelly, she can get you a recording. But don't be late next time. You got it. All right. What else? Oh, when buying interest on properties in the state, do we need the state specific LLC? You can buy it in your name in that state and you don't have to register. My first 20 or 30 deals were in Logan Fullmer. You go look it up in the land records in Bear County. If you're going to buy in an LLC, wherever you're at, you've got to domesticate that LLC into that state. So for example, I'm in Texas and about half a dozen other states. So when I do a deal in North Carolina, I have to domesticate one of my LLCs in North Carolina, register at the Secretary of State, costs a couple $100, use it to file it. It's not a really big deal, but you better do it because otherwise that transaction can be challenged, and I would not do that. If you don't have a big business and not like a real meaningful operation, buy in your own name, make it simple, go get you a couple deals, make some money. Then you can spend the legal fees to keep all that crap up. But until then, like, who really cares? Just go do the deal, make some money.
You wanna hear one I
Canada,
have no.
let's hear it. Last one, and then we'll get out of here.
My name is Michael Schomer. In 2018, I bought 2 parcels of land, 19 acres and 30 acres on a road called Twin Creeks in Seguin, Texas. I cut the 10 acres up into the 30 acres into 10-acre tracts, and I started going to sell tracts, and I got a letter from the landowner that had joined me on Twin Creeks, what I thought was a county road. And I bought these with a title policy. And he says, you are overburdening my easement. It isn't yours to drive on. I went back to title company. They told me you have your own easement. It's on the north and south end of your property, not the north. I went back and looked at that easement. It went through a ravine and a ditch and the 40 acre in front of it. When I talked to that guy, his barn's right in the middle of it. And he said, you cannot use it. It hasn't been used. You can't use it. I'm going to fight you. So I went back talking to my surveyor, my engineer who had surveyed, and he says, Mike, there are call points every 108 feet along your whole fence line along Twin Creeks Road. And he went to research it, and it was an undeveloped subdivision. 2.5 acre tracts all the way to the road, about 40 tracts. I went to the city of Seguin and I asked them for me to be able to reinstate and sell those 2.5 acre tracts. I owned 11 of them. What I did, I bought the neighbors 22 acres after that. I made a deal with him to buy it. And then I went to the city of Seguin. I reinstated that subdivision. And they gave me a letter, and easiest thing in the world I ever did, but I had an engineer, a surveyor engineer that helped me on it. I went to that landowner. I says, we can work a deal to where you give my 49 acres access to this road, or I'll sell the 49 acres with one of the 2.5 acre tracts and let them go over it. And plus I will not add any restrictive covenants to these 2.5 acre tracts. We worked a deal. I was able to sell my properties. He gave me an easement. He bought 3 of my tracts that adjoined his that he wanted, and it all worked out for me, but I had to pave the road. And so I paved it. I spent $70,000, and the land he bought from me was like 80. So it all worked out for me. I just wanted to share that was in 2018. One of my first experiences buying a piece of land with a title company, thinking I had a good deal. And my road would have cost over $100,000. I solved it, and I added more land. I bought another 22 acres and solved it, all because of looking at the call points in the survey. Every 180 feet, there was a pin. What is this about? I just want to share that with you.
So I think that's an interesting story. I think that kind of speaks to the heart of this curative title and distressed property, ideology. What you're looking for is more information. You've got to ask more questions. You have to dig deeper. And sometimes you won't stumble across an underlying surprise like you had that brought value. Sometimes you will. Sometimes I'll find an easement that existed in the land record. Sometimes I won't. But if you're looking, you'd be shocked what you find. I think, to me, that's the message out of that.
Yep.
Kai, thanks for hosting us here. Man, this has been fun. I enjoy it. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, if you can't tell. Anybody else got any questions about our event? We're probably ready to bounce. I got some kiddos waiting on me, and Christmas week is starting, so we have some of that happening. All right. Well, I think we're in good shape. Kai, appreciate it. We've dumped that link in there a bunch of times. We'll send out some email reminders if anybody wants to sign up here in the near term. We'll get that out to you soon. All right,
Man,
everybody.
thank you, man. This was great, man. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the event, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there.
That's right. All right. We'll see y'all.
All right,
Merry
bye, guys.
Christmas, everyone.